there's something about this baseball team, man, and you're as close to it as anybody. But I want to be careful here. How much of what you see with this baseball team, just kind of relentless, kind of staying on the gas, and I'll get to a couple of specifics here in a sec, do you see overlapping with what you saw behind the scenes with basketball kind of as their backbone too, with the intangibles? Is this team becoming one of those intangible type baseball teams?
Yeah, I think you can draw some parallels there, right? I remember having some conversations with KP, but also some guys that, are on the staff and, running practices and things like that before they even touched the floor this year, talking about the team chemistry and camaraderie. And that's the first thing we've heard from this baseball staff about this team is how much these guys like each other. And it's always one thing to hear that and kind of take it for what it is from somebody else, but to see it, and I can point to any number of examples, right? Like we're probably 5 rows back on the bus, and the row right behind us, you've got Drew Grigo sitting next to Jet Buck. You've got Devin Nunez sitting next to Joshua Overbeek. Like you've got young guys sitting with old guys where typically, we all remember what it's like to be an older guy at some point in time, either in high school or in college or even professional. It's always a fight for the back of the bus or the plane when you get old.
Yep.
That's not the case with this team at all. I remember specifically we're driving to Auburn in a bus, and it's like an hour and 15 from Columbus, Georgia to Auburn. And everybody has a seat except for Joshua Overbeek and Dylan Carey. Those seniors are the ones standing in the aisleway or sitting in the aisleway for an hour and 15 to give their seat up for somebody else. So my point is you see things like that, and it helps on the field. And I think you saw that in basketball too. And then all of this is leading up to the word that makes teams dangerous in a season, and that's belief. Once you have that belief, like the basketball team started to gain, and the baseball team certainly has, and you have the talent to back it up, you become a handful for no matter who you're playing and regardless of situation.
Ben, as you're looking at kind of some of the logistics of how this played out over the weekend, is it too early or is it too linear to say Ty Horn in the bullpen solves most of your questions? And I guess the second part of that question is, do you feel like this is the version of Ty Horn they're getting out of the bullpen moving forward?
I feel like the first part of your question is yes. Like if Nebraska gets this version of Ty Horn or anybody else to help Jay Sean in the back end, you're going to go a long way. I'm thinking of the 2019 Michigan team that had that nasty rotation led by Tommy Henry and Jeff Criswell, who was the Sunday guy, I believe, in that rotation. And they moved him to the bullpen. And that's the team that went on the run to the national championship against Vanderbilt as basically the last team in the tournament, because they were able to have that bridge guy that could, start in the 5th inning and finish it. Not to say that's going to be Ty, but if you have a guy that can do things like that and you can weather the storm of a bad start, which we were able to see yesterday with Gavin Blachowicz, that's an elite weapon that not a lot of teams have. And not only that, but the mound presence and attitude that Ty has come out to pitch with, I think there's no other way to describe it other than piss and vinegar. That's just how he's come out of the bullpen. You saw it against Creighton, and you saw it a couple of times this weekend against SC, where he had that killer look in his eye like he did when he was shutting out UCLA in the Big Ten championship a year ago. So if he can keep rolling, he's 3 for 3. I think he's allowed 1 run in relief in 3 appearances. You're going to take that 8 days out of 7.
So let me would you boil it down to, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, obviously mentality coming in as a starter versus coming out of the bullpen is very different. Lots of guys are just better at one versus the other for whatever reason. For Ty Horn, you mentioned only the one run given up, didn't walk anybody this weekend across 6 innings against USC, which had been an issue for him earlier in the year. Like, would you just boil it down to, you hear that one had a little FU on it from the Creighton game. Like, would you just boil it down to he wasn't aggressive enough as a starter? Like, is that too fine of a point?
I think the thing with Ty is, it's hard. The thing that was, I think, puzzling for the coaches was it wasn't necessarily just the same thing every time, right? Like if it's just command or you don't have your breaking stuff or it's the walks or it's the amount of hard contact you give it. Like it seemed to be something different with him every start. And that's what made it tough for the coaching staffs to kind of figure out. But I think it got to a point after the Oregon start where no matter what the situation was or reason was, it started to become just we need to make a change. There's just too many factors. The unreliability, regardless of circumstance, was too much to overthink at this point. And not only do I think it was good for the coaches, but I think it's been really good for Ty to kind of get a new role and just, a breath of fresh air. Maybe the pressure's off, so to speak. That's the other thing is, you could see the weight on his shoulders with the starts, just trying to do too much. And that's when Ty's gotten into trouble. So, I guess if you could sum it up to do, to fit one criteria, Ravi, that's probably what I'd say is, I think the game really started to speed up on him. But now that he can kind of take control, Nebraska can place him in a game where they're comfortable and confident, and Ty's comfortable and confident. I think you're kind of seeing that rejuvenation from him and new birth, so to speak, and it's coming at the right time.
It's fascinating. He was one of the things that I wanted to talk about because much like a guy like Rhett Stokes who hit his way back into, I'm not even going to say good graces, right? But Stokes is easily one of those guys that could have been overlooked coming into this season. He's like, you know what? I'm going back to work. I'm going to find a way to stay in this lineup. But he's coming off a 3-hit day. Like Ty could have gone south, heading to the bullpen, could have gone a number of directions for some of these guys. And they just kind of bulldog it. And I can't help but to think like there has to be, from whatever they're doing and I get it. It's cutesy. It's the C word, but there has to be something that's going on. And Sam intimated that this could have started way back at Maine, right? Coming back in a game and kind of, that bulldog mentality where guys just understand it. Whatever's going on, it's just part of the deal, but there's something bigger than what we're actually doing out there. I'm just going to do my role.
Yeah. I think, for Stokes, right? Like Rhett is a competitor. He's we have a lot of fun together. Rhett and I have.
How easy would it have been for him to just go into the season differently?
Or come back to the season at all. Like there was a real
good point.
There was a real conversation to be had if he was going to be part of this thing or not. After when everyone was clamoring to burn the whole thing down after the exodus after last year and questioning Will Bolt and the coaches on evaluating their roster, seeing guys leave or not being asked back at a rate that hasn't been seen in a long time. They were on the field against that Oklahoma team in Chapel Hill, and they knew they needed to get better, right? And it's no disrespect to the guys that raised a trophy at the end of last year at the Big Ten Championship, but Rhett was a part of that. Rhett wasn't an everyday starter on that team. And just to tell it like it is, Rhett was basically told, you're not going to be an everyday starter if you choose to come back. You are going to be a culture glue guy that is going to be asked to, give us a look on defense, to be a late inning substitution if we need it. And Rhett's like, yeah, bring it on. I want to play college baseball one more year. And, it took a couple of injuries in the outfield and Jet Buck to slide out to left field to open that door. And, similar to Mac Moyer, he hasn't been able to take his name off the lineup card.
Yeah.
And Will Bolt always tells us, if guys are doing their jobs, they write themselves on the lineup card. I don't have to do it. And Rhett's one of those guys. Moyer's one of those guys. And to what you were saying about the Maine thing, to me, Maine isn't even part of it. It goes even further back than that, to the second weekend in Texas, when you lose a tough one that you shouldn't have lost against Louisville on Friday. You let one slip away against K-State. You're staring down the barrel of a top 5 team in Florida State on Sunday, when you could have just licked your wounds, took one on the chin, got on the plane back to Lincoln and said, that wasn't our weekend. But they kicked the dog out of Florida State on Sunday. And I know Florida State had a couple of guys not in the lineup, but Miles Bailey was still in the lineup. Their Sunday guy was still in the lineup. And Nebraska dominated them. And I think that's really where the belief started. Certainly took a step back against Auburn, but you saw that confidence continue to grow and that belief start there, to where, they're in the clubhouse before that Sunday game and Will Bolt is challenging these guys. How are you going to respond when you're kicked in the face? Because this isn't going to be the only adversity we see this year. And then I think you start to see all the stuff after that, the main stuff, winning the midweek games, and then certainly this weekend. But, there's just been a lot that's kind of happened to get to this point. And you just have to give all the credit in the world to the coaching staff for pushing all the right buttons.
Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't. I kind of thought I was not the one to tell the Stokes story. I'm glad. I was kind of dancing around it, right? You're like, look, man, he wasn't even going to come back. Like, the writing was on the wall, because I think we forget. We're misremembering how that season ended last year, and there was a ton of scrutiny. What are we going to do with the program? Is Coach Childers still invested in the pitching staff, and his time is split? Like, there's a lot, right? In that offseason, as you called the mass exodus. So to see the resolve, I think, is one of the main reasons why I wanted to touch on the intangible part of what this team is doing. Because look no further than this weekend, right? 2 of your Friday and Saturday starters had it rough, right? I mean, Katsky and Black weren't sharp, and Nebraska swept the thing, right? Like, that's hard to do when your starters give you those kinds of outings. And it wasn't too long ago we were wondering what Coach Childress was doing with this pitching staff. So everybody's kind of been doubted. For these guys to kind of be where they're at is a heck of a story.
Well, not only that, you're not getting good starts, but you're going up against a top 5 pitching staff in the country, to where your expected run output this weekend, I don't think
it's supposed to be low.
I don't think you would have put it at more than like 12 to 15 for the series.
Yeah.
And Edwards was better than I expected him to be. And I had high expectations.
He was right or wrong, wasn't he?
He was really, really good and stoic. And, he looked like a professional. And I think I said this on the air on Friday. I was like, I don't think Nebraska cares if it's Shohei Ohtani out there on the mound. Just as long as it wasn't Mason Edwards, it was a breath of fresh air. And they hit like it. And then what they did to Gavell on Saturday was insanity. The 4 straight 2-out hits, the pitch count. I mean, the home run in the 3rd inning with back-to-back from Sandy and Carey for the 2nd straight week. And then Grigo hit one that still hadn't landed yet. That was to me where it's like, okay, this team's not playing around. But I think the most impressive thing all weekend was you have to give SC a ton of credit for throwing a pretty heavy uppercut to Nebraska in the 2nd inning with a 3-run homer and a 2-run homer. You're like, man, these guys aren't laying down after the last 2 games. You maybe expected them to be licking their wounds a little bit on Saturday after the way they lost, but they're like, all right, they're coming for blood on Sunday. And then Nebraska just dropped the hammer on them yesterday. And that's when Nick and I are like, shit, these guys are good. Like these guys can play, and they don't care about circumstance. Yes, it was one of the cooler weekends that I've been a part of to see all the people in the stands, but these guys were out for blood, and they made the 12th ranked team in the country look like they weren't very good at baseball. And that's a 30-win ball club that they just, took apart for 3 games.
Ben, that DB and I like to get a little philosophical sometimes and talking about, roster construction and team building and things like that. And I hear the Rhett Stokes story about, hey, you're not going to be a full-time starter. And he's like, well, I'm coming back anyway. And then I hear about a team that goes and does the things that it does, whether it's in Texas, like you talked about, or, being able to just grind through an Edwards start where he's mowing guys down and hang in there long enough to win that game. And
the grimy midday against Creighton or midweek against Creighton coming off of Oregon.
Yeah. And then you've got, you're down 5-2 yesterday. And you end up run ruling them again. Like, am I reading too much into the fact that you've got personalities like Rhett Stokes on that team that are like, I don't care about the circumstances. I'm coming back and you're going to have to deal with me. And then a team in general that doesn't really care about the circumstances and says, we're coming back, you're going to have to deal with me.
Yeah. And I think, there's too many stories like the Stokes thing to throw out. Right. I mean, Joshua Overbeek's the heartbeat of this team. And, I remember, after the spring break trip and, you're just tired, you're exhausted being on the road. And for this team, it was coming back from Michigan. Then you turn around, you play K-State on a Tuesday. And then, the coaches want to load manage at times. And Coach Bolt sends out the pregame text on, I don't remember what game it was, Friday or Saturday, and says, guys, we're going to hit inside, take a little bit off before the game. And Joshua Overbeek texted Coach Bolt and said, no, we're not doing that. We're hitting outside. Boys want to hit outside, so we're going to hit outside. Bolt goes, okay, we're hitting outside. So I think it's just that attitude that is just, it's seeped all the way down from the Careys and the Sandersons and the Stokeses down to the freshmen. Now you're seeing Grigo and all these newcomers, even though Buck and Moyer aren't freshmen, but they're newcomers to the program, and they all embody the exact same thing. Jet Buck takes 91 to the helmet yesterday, takes a second to get his bearings, and then grabs his helmet and sprints to first base, right? Mac Moyer, we're up 9 runs, and he's ahead 2-0 in the count, and there's a 50-50 call that doesn't go his way, and he turns around to the umpire and asks a question about his strike zone. Like, these guys are just a bunch of killers that want to win and they want to compete, and I think you're seeing that show up in spades, especially when their backs are against the wall.
So it's not even so much that we got the Grigo thing right and our off-season talk kind of previewing the team, but baseball is such a funny sport because one of the things that I liked about him, and you had seen him, in the fall aspect of it, so you had kind of knew what the guys were saying about him. For me, it was he played so much varsity baseball as a youngster. He acts like a professional when he's hitting. I think I was texting you during the game. It seems like the 0 for 9 7 Ks against Eugene, which we kind of forgot about, is later in the season. I think your response to me was that's about as much of a slump as he's been in, and he immediately snapped out of it against Creighton. He's been on a tear ever since. What is it about his temperament do you like that had you so high in the beginning?
Because he competes. He's the first one you want to draft in a touch football game in your backyard, whether he's the fastest or strongest or not, because he's going to wear it, put it all on the line for you. And that's a coach's dream. He's a shortstop that comes to Lincoln and says, Coach, I don't care where I play. I just want to help the team win. And he's like, all right, you're going to go play right field because we need corner outfield. He said, done. I think it really helped playing Creighton on Tuesday. Being a Nebraska kid, I think, that's a game that really shook his cobwebs out of Eugene. And it's baseball. You're going to have slumps. Like, you're not going to hit always. And like you said, he just handles himself like a professional. And, even after the game yesterday, I gave him a big hug and I said, hey, congrats. This is what you dream of. And he looks at me and said, yeah. And I go, dude, you can smile. Like, we just won. Like, he looked like the game hadn't started yet and he was getting ready to walk to the plate. I was like, we just won 2 10-run games in front of 21,000 people in 3 straight games. Like, you can smile a little bit and enjoy it, but that's just kind of how he is, man. Like, he's just
his dad was such a good player. I wonder if he gets that from him.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me, right? I mean, and he's waited his whole life to put on this jersey, and so he doesn't take that for granted. And he just wants to be a good teammate. He wants to help his team win. And when you do that, you do things that are maybe beyond your talent level. Not to say that he's not talented, because he is very, very skilled, very technically sound. He's a good college baseball player already. But I don't think you have backside bomb at 420 in your tool belt when you look like that, right?
Yeah, it's like he's very unassuming, right? He's got to be about a buck one, buck 90, maybe 95, maybe 6 foot. It's like he shows up a ton. And he was like, I'm gonna butcher this, but I think he was only like the 8th or 9th, maybe somewhere late 10s best prospect coming out of high school. And I'm thinking to myself, in the state of Nebraska, like, I get it. We play good baseball, but that guy had played a ton of games as a high school. He had a lot of swings, man.
Yeah, and he's the type of kid that's like, okay, rank me 10. That's cute. Watch this. Like, here's a 4 for 4. Like he uses, a chip on his shoulder. Very, very much a chip on his shoulder. And fits right in with our team. And I know our coaches just absolutely love him, and love what he's about.
That's Ben McLaughlin, play-by-play voice for Nebraska baseball. Appreciate the time, as always, Ben.
Hey, twice, and we're really back-to-back show days. Don't get tired of us. I'll try to text a lot less so you can at least miss me a little bit, because I know we've talked a ton in a short amount of time.
I'll talk baseball anytime, any place. Plus, you all have my information, so reach out anytime.
And listen, for as bad as KC's off to a start, your Hornets are on the uptick. Nebraska's got a heck of a season. We're gonna try to get you guy this week. He's looking at his time, so we'll see if there's anything to this whole the other sports being good puts pressure on football sentiment that I keep hearing about.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, let's just enjoy it. We just enjoy it. Like,
the most Ben Mac thing ever.
We just enjoy basketball. We'll enjoy baseball. Football will come around in the fall, and then we'll get after it then.
Can I put that on a T-shirt? Yeah.
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah. Please do. Send me one. I'm a large.
All context. Yeah, whatever. All right, be good.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
That's Ben McLaughlin.
Yeah. Whatever.
So I saw a shirt yesterday. I was out, and I kind of feel like it embodies this Nebraska baseball team a lot. And it's the line from The Last Dance where it goes, and I took that personally. It's a Jordan brand shirt, and they're printing them now in Carolina colors. It's just like, and I took that personally.
It's a fan. I'm glad he can do that, because I think he's around them so much. He knows what would be betraying confidence and not. I've heard the story, talked to Coach Bolt about like guys like Stokes. Why I bring him up specifically? Because he's all but left for dead, right?
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, nah, that's fine. Nebraska had an offensive line or linebacker. Yeah, I'm not on the 105 list. Okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
Right. Like, when the more guys that you have that are like that don't resign themselves to what everybody else says, it's fascinating. Ty Horn could have gone south.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yes.
We were like, oh shoot, man, perfect answer for a guy in the bullpen, man.
I said, are we sure?
You did ask me that.
I was like, are we sure?
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much about his temperament, so much as the things he had struggled with, because again, smaller sample size, those base runners can be a problem in a hurry, right?
And he's embraced it.
And now he's like, I don't give up base runners anymore, apparently. Yeah. It goes 5 innings, gives up, I think, 6 base runners yesterday. Hasn't hardly given up. I mean, like I said, hasn't walked anybody. That problem is just gone now.
And the cool thing is like they didn't subscribe themselves to like what everybody else was saying, right? Does Coach Childress miss seeing his son play, and how committed, and what's going on with this staff and the talent eval? And I'm just like, it wasn't that long ago.
It would also.
Do you remember the Exodus?
Oh yeah. It would also and it would also be really easy for a couple things there. Number one, it'd be really easy if you're in Nebraska to look at things and be like, okay, well, we struggled in Texas, we struggled against Auburn, We lost 2 out of 3 against Oregon. Like at a certain point, if you're not wired a certain way, you're like, maybe we're not that caliber of team.
Especially in baseball.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially in baseball when you're like, oh man, like
It's a lot of downtime.
You'd think we'd fluke into a couple of these a little bit more, right? But obviously that wasn't the case. The other part of this is you talk about that mass exodus and everybody panicking. And I juxtapose that with, I keep coming back to this, and I don't even remember who it was. I wish I did. But an interview that we posted about one of the Nebraska baseball players before the season being like, yeah, there were some cancers on that team last year.
Yeah, you do keep.
That's because I've never heard somebody say that out loud, like with their face and name on the record.
Was it Horn?
I think it might have been. I kept thinking it was Horn, but I don't remember for sure. And I need to go find it and look it up. It's on our Hail Varsity page somewhere. But like, just to like, when you compare those two things, it's like, oh yeah, probably needed the mass exodus. Like you talk about all the conversations they had with people with Ben McLaughlin, and he goes, yeah, there's
AJ, it was Horn.
Yeah, like there's some people you're just like, yeah, we're not, this isn't how we're playing baseball anymore. We're not doing that. I think it's really, really fascinating because, you know, we talk the most about basketball, football, but we talk a lot of baseball. And I find the mental input outputs really fascinating on the different sports, right? I think there's probably more overlap than we think, considering how different the dynamics of each sport are. But we really, really undervalue mental toughness in baseball.
Yeah, it's like you get
team mental toughness.
He went back to Florida State getting that win.
Yeah,
and
that was a great poll.
You come back that Friday, you beat Auburn, right? Then the very next day was the debacle, right? Where how did Ben say he was doing the broadcast? He like put his head down. He's like ball 4, ball 4. Like remember?
Yeah, we talked to him right after that.
They couldn't pitch.
Couldn't throw a strike.
Pitch it worth a lick. Sunday was the meltdown at Auburn, and you come back and it's like, all right, we got a little not inter squad. We got interstate. Yeah. You got Omaha. Then you had SDSU.
You just don't get a ton of opportunities to.
And they like recalibrated after. You got back-to-backers against FSU and Auburn, and then you lay the egg the next two against, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah,
like it wasn't competitive. I think Saturday they got 10 run.
Yeah,
and that Sunday, and you just remember I was like, hey man, it's kind of a tricky one coming back to Omaha. What are we thinking? And it was basically, we'll see how they bounce back.
Austin, do you have that clip?
Two completely different teams in 2 years here. One being a 40-win team, and we were somewhat together, and last year we kind of it was kind of a cancer. There was a couple guys that they were just a cancer to the team, and so it didn't. And like one guy impacts another. It was almost contagious. But this year is like almost like it happened instantly, where everybody just had that glue together, and it was pretty fun to see and pretty fun to be a part of.
God, we undersaw that. Like except when we see it, right? It's all we talk about in basketball.
Oh, what great chemistry they have.
And then
but we never talk about when we're trying to put a team together, right?
Because I think it's not cool it's an eye roll if they aren't winning yet. So like that's kind of what you have to.
We do eye roll it.
Nobody wants to hear the C word unless you're actually winning.
But people have brought this up a ton as well. Like a lot of teams are spending NIL money that aren't winning.
Oh no,
right? We're being on Florida State. We bring up LSU a lot of teams that are spending a lot of NIL money and aren't winning.
Did you see hoops this year?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Right here in the state, I saw it. Yeah. Right. And that's the funny thing too.
Touche.
Like chemistry and everything like that. It doesn't even have to be bad guys. That's the hard part about this, right? It's really easy not to recruit a bad guy. It's also apparently really easy to recruit some bad guys because people fall for it all the time.
That's a good point, Chuck. And he went right back to you see who they just got out of the portal?
Yep.
DeVries?
Yep. And that's a guy that knows.
Yeah.
Like that's a guy that knows. Yeah. Right. But there is, we roll our eyes when we're talking about like, what do you think like a lot of secret sauces in Indiana, but one of them is like that team has its culture set and they aren't bringing a soul in that doesn't fit that, right? You're telling me he couldn't have gone out and gotten any quarterback in the country that he wanted to replace Fernando Mendoza? You're telling me he's like, oh, Josh Hoover's the only one that wants to come here? I don't think so. I don't buy that.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're looking at it with Nebraska football, and you again, people, like you said, roll their eyes because they haven't won enough yet.
And maybe Sam was on to something. My buddy texts, he says, look, my son was with Berkey a lot over the last couple of weeks. He said Berkey is kind of aching to Gronk. Some guidance will help do him well. So to Sam's point with the pieces behind the pieces,
sure.
Like you don't really know unless like you watch it.
Spend a lot of time around that.
Unfold. But I do know one thing about Vandy.
What's that?
If Tanner's back and you got a head coach that got the extension, Vandy should be pretty good next year.
Tanner's so good.
He's
unbelievable.
He's elite.
That's the show for today. That's DB. I'm Ravi. You got a question, Rico? What's up?
What up, Suave?
I say you're talking about building a team and teams winning and all that. Nebraska softball, new number one.
Yeah, Softball America got them one, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're, again, a team that had to show some resolve.
Yeah.
Wasn't always rainbows and butterflies.